The dealership hummed with energy as the white lady manager navigated the rows of polished vehicles, her sharp blazer a symbol of her hard-won authority. Suddenly, the front door swung open, and a gust of wind swept through the showroom, announcing the arrival of a black man in a weathered leather jacket whose confident stride commanded attention. Just as he reached the desk, the atmosphere shifted. She immediately judged and asked him to leave, and with a steady voice, he uttered a single, loaded phrase that hung in the air. "I have something important to discuss." Please like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications for more intriguing stories like this one. Comment your opinions below. The morning sunlight streamed through the large glass windows of Westfield Auto Dealership, glinting off the freshly waxed cars on display. Emily Carter, the dealership's manager, stood by the showroom floor, clipboard in hand. She was immaculate, dressed in a tailored navy blazer and heels that clicked sharply against the tiled floor. Emily thrived on order and efficiency, and her sales team knew better than to challenge her authority. "All right, team," she announced during the morning huddle, her voice firm but motivational. "We're heading into the weekend. That means increased traffic and no excuses. If you're not closing deals, you're not doing your job. Let's make it count." The group nodded in unison, though there were some wary glances exchanged. Emily wasn't known for her leniency. Results were all that mattered to her, and she expected her team to deliver, just as she did. As the meeting broke up, Emily turned to her assistant manager, Laura. "Keep an eye on the numbers today. I don't want anyone slacking." Laura nodded. "Will do." Emily scanned the showroom floor with a critical eye. The pristine vehicles, gleaming under the lights, were arranged like soldiers in formation. She walked past a shiny black SUV, stopping briefly to check that its price sticker was perfectly aligned in the window. Satisfied, she made her way back to her office, where she reviewed the sales reports from the previous week. The numbers were solid, but not spectacular, and that gnawed her. She prided herself on running the top-performing dealership in the region, and anything less than stellar performance was unacceptable. Around mid-morning, Emily noticed a man entering the showroom. He was tall, dressed casually in jeans and a well-worn leather jacket. His demeanor was calm, almost too calm for someone stepping into a high-pressure sales environment. His skin was dark, his hair neatly cropped, and his movements unhurried as he strolled past the cars on display. Emily's eyes narrowed. Something about him felt off. He didn't fit the profile of the usual clientele. Most customers who came through their doors were professionals or suburban families, not men like him. Laura approached her desk, interrupting Emily's thoughts. "There's a new guy wandering around the floor," she said softly, clearly sharing Emily's unease. "Should I send someone to assist him?" "No," Emily said, setting her clipboard down. "I'll handle this." Emily stepped onto the showroom floor, her heels clicking loudly, signaling her approach. She plastered on her customer service smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning," she said, her tone professional but clipped. "Can I help you with something?" The man turned to her, his expression unreadable. "I'm just looking," he said, his voice deep and smooth. Emily folded her arms. "If you're looking for something specific, I can direct you to one of our sales associates." He glanced at the cars, then back at her. "I think I'll manage." Emily's patience thinned. The man's casual demeanor didn't sit well with her. Customers didn't come in to just look, they came to buy or waste time. And she didn't have time to waste. "Well, if you decide you're serious about purchasing, let us know," she said curtly. Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked back toward her office, shaking her head. From her desk, she kept an eye on him. He moved slowly through the showroom, pausing to inspect the details of various vehicles. He didn't ask questions, didn't engage with the staff, and didn't seem the least bit hurried. Every so often, he glanced around the room as if he were evaluating something beyond the cars. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't belong there. By early afternoon, the man was still there, lingering near the luxury sedans. Emily decided she'd had enough. She stepped onto the floor once more, this time with a sense of purpose. "Excuse me," she said firmly as she approached him. "I've noticed you've been here for a while. Can I ask what exactly you're looking for?" The man raised an eyebrow, his calm demeanor unshaken. Why does it matter how long I've been here? Emily's posture stiffened. We value our customers' time and ours. If you're not here to make a purchase, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. There was a brief silence as the man studied her, his gaze steady and disarming. Are you seriously kicking me out of a dealership for looking at cars? Emily felt a twinge of uncertainty, but pushed it aside. I'm not kicking you out. I'm simply asking that you respect our business. This is a place for serious buyers. The man chuckled softly, shaking his head. Got it? Without another word, he turned and walked out the door, leaving Emily standing there, a strange mix of relief and unease settling over her. The rest of the day passed uneventfully, though Emily found herself thinking about the man more than she cared to admit. Something about his composure and the way he'd left without argument nagged at her. She brushed it off as a minor annoyance until the next morning. A dealership-wide meeting was called first thing, which wasn't unusual. Emily assumed it was a routine announcement, likely about sales goals or upcoming promotions. But when she entered the conference room, she noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The staff seemed unusually tense, whispering among themselves. At the head of the table stood the man from the day before. Emily froze, her stomach dropping. He was no longer in his casual clothes. Instead, he wore a tailored suit, exuding an air of authority that hadn't been apparent during their previous encounter. Good morning, he began, his voice commanding yet calm. For those of you who don't know, my name is Marcus Williams. As of last month, I'm the new owner of this dealership. The room fell silent. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as his words sank in. Her mind raced, replaying every word she'd said to him the day before. The realization hit her like a freight train. She had just kicked her boss out of his own dealership. The room was suffocatingly silent as Marcus scanned the faces of the staff, his expression calm but unreadable. He allowed the weight of his introduction to settle over the group before continuing. I came here yesterday, Marcus said, pacing slowly, to observe. I wanted to see how this dealership runs without anyone knowing who I am. After all, how you treat a stranger often says more about a place than numbers on a spreadsheet. Emily's face burned with shame, her heart hammering in her chest. She wanted to shrink into her seat, but her pride wouldn't let her look away. Marcus stopped and turned his gaze directly toward her. And I learned a lot. The words hung heavy in the air. Emily forced herself to meet his eyes, though her palms were damp, gripping the arms of her chair. I watched how your team worked, Marcus continued, his tone steady but with a sharp edge. I saw employees who were helpful, polite, and professional. I also saw moments where improvements could be made, opportunities for better training, better leadership, and, frankly, better attitudes. Emily swallowed hard, knowing exactly where this was heading. But the most enlightening part of my visit, Marcus said, stepping closer, was my interaction with your manager. The tension in the room was palpable. Emily felt every eye turn toward her, though no one dared to speak. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words carried the weight of authority and disappointment. Emily Carter, isn't it? She nodded stiffly. Yes, sir. I understand you were simply doing your job, Marcus said. Ensuring this business runs smoothly is part of your role. But let me ask you something, Miss Carter. Is it standard practice to judge customers based on their appearance or how long they spend looking at cars? Emily's mouth went dry. No, sir, she said, her voice quieter than she intended. That's not standard practice. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Then help me understand. Yesterday, you approached me, a potential customer, and rather than offer assistance, you made it clear I wasn't welcome. Why is that? The room felt like it was holding its breath. Emily's mind scrambled for an explanation that didn't sound like an excuse. I made a judgment call, she said finally, her voice tight. I thought you might have been, she hesitated, realizing too late that there was no good way to finish that sentence. Marcus tilted his head slightly, his calm demeanor unshaken. You thought I might have been what? Emily flinched at the question, her words caught in her throat. She had no answer that wouldn't incriminate her further. Marcus let the silence stretch before speaking again. Let me make something clear to everyone in this room, he said, addressing the group now. This dealership will not tolerate assumptions, prejudices, or any behavior that undermines the principles of respect and professionalism. If you're wearing this dealership's badge, you represent more than just yourself. You represent this team, this brand, and this community. He paused, letting his words sink in. This isn't just about me, Marcus continued, his gaze returning to Emily. If I had been anyone else, a customer who didn't fit whatever image you expected, how would they have been treated? Would they have been asked to leave too? And if so, how many potential sales have we already lost because of behavior like this? Emily felt the sting of his words, but forced herself to stay composed. It won't happen again, she said softly. You're right, Marcus said, his tone firm. It won't. He straightened, his voice softening slightly. Miss Carter, I believe in second chances. Mistakes are inevitable, but growth is a choice. I'm willing to give you the opportunity to learn from this and prove that you're the kind of leader this dealership needs. But make no mistake, this is your chance to grow. If I don't see improvement, we'll have a very different conversation. Emily nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. Thank you, sir. Marcus nodded back, then addressed the rest of the staff. We're going to work together to make this dealership the best in the region. That means more training, better communication, and a culture of respect that starts from the top. Change isn't easy, but it's necessary. And it starts now. With that, the meeting was adjourned, and the staff began to disperse, murmurs rippling through the room. Emily stayed seated, staring at the table in front of her, her thoughts racing. She had a long road ahead, and for the first time in years, she felt truly unsure of herself. As Marcus left the room, he paused at the door and glanced back at her. His expression wasn't angry, it was resolute, almost kind. Prove me right, Miss Carter, he said simply, then walked out. Emily sat in her office long after the meeting had ended, staring blankly at her computer screen. The familiar spreadsheets and sales charts seemed meaningless now. Her mind was replaying Marcus's words over and over. Prove me right. The phrase lingered, equal parts challenge and condemnation. Emily prided herself on being decisive, on maintaining control. But today, she'd been shaken to her core. Her instincts, her judgment call, had been wrong, and now everyone knew it. She glanced at the small framed photo on her desk, her parents, smiling proudly at her college graduation. Her father had always taught her the importance of hard work, of earning respect rather than demanding it. Was she living up to that? A knock on her office door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Laura, her assistant manager, holding 2 cups of coffee. You okay? Laura asked, setting 1 cup on the desk. Emily hesitated, then nodded. I'll survive. Laura took a seat across from her. That was intense. But you know, Marcus didn't seem like he was out to humiliate you. It felt like he really wants to see things improve. I know, Emily said, though her voice lacked conviction. She took a sip of the coffee, her hands still trembling slightly. I can't believe I messed up that badly. I've been doing this for years. I thought I had good instincts. Everyone makes mistakes, Laura said gently. It's how you bounce back that matters. And honestly, I think he respects you enough to give you the chance to fix it. Emily managed a faint smile. Let's hope you're right. The next morning, Emily arrived at the dealership earlier than usual. She spent the first hour walking the floor, checking in with each member of the team, something she hadn't done in months. She asked about their families, their goals, their challenges. The responses were cautious at first, but as the conversations unfolded, she noticed something she hadn't seen in a while: genuine engagement. When Marcus arrived shortly after, she was waiting for him by the front desk. Mr. Williams, she said, her tone professional but earnest. Could we talk for a moment? He studied her briefly, then nodded. Of course. They walked to his new office, a space that had once belonged to the previous owner but now looked fresh and modern, with sleek furniture and large windows that let in plenty of light. Marcus gestured for her to sit. I want to apologize again for how I handled things the other day, Emily began, her voice steady. I was wrong, and I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About respect, about assumptions. I want you to know I'm committed to making changes, not just in myself, but in the way this dealership operates. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. That's good to hear. What kind of changes are you thinking? Emily hesitated, then took a deep breath. For starters, I'd like to implement better customer service training. Something that focuses on recognizing and overcoming biases. We've always focused on sales tactics, but I think we've neglected the human side of the business. Marcus nodded slowly. Go on. I also think we need to revisit our hiring practices, Emily continued. We need a more diverse team. Right now, our staff doesn't reflect the community we serve, and I think that's holding us back. Marcus's lips curved into a faint smile. You've clearly put some thought into this. I have, Emily said, her confidence growing. And I know it'll take time to rebuild trust, with you, with the team, and with our customers. But I'm ready to do the work. Marcus studied her for a moment before leaning forward. Emily, I appreciate your honesty. Change is never easy, especially when it means confronting uncomfortable truths. But I believe you're capable of leading this dealership into a new chapter. Relief washed over her, though she knew this was just the beginning. Thank you, she said sincerely. Marcus nodded. Let's get to work. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Emily threw herself into the process of change, working closely with Marcus to develop new training modules and outreach programs. They brought in consultants to lead workshops on diversity and inclusion, and Emily personally conducted weekly check-ins with her team to ensure everyone felt heard. Not everyone embraced the changes immediately. A few longtime employees grumbled about the new expectations, accusing Emily of pandering to Marcus. I've been selling cars for 20 years, one salesman muttered during a meeting. Now you're telling me I need sensitivity training to do my job. Emily held her ground. Yes, I am, she said firmly. Because this isn't just about selling cars. It's about creating an environment where every customer feels valued. If you're not on board with that, this might not be the right place for you. Her resolve earned her both respect and pushback, but she didn't waver. One Saturday afternoon, a young couple walked into the dealership, hesitant and unsure. Emily noticed them immediately and approached with a warm smile. Welcome to Westfield Auto, she said. How can I help you today? The couple exchanged a glance before the man spoke. We're just looking, but we're not sure if we can afford anything here. Emily's smile didn't falter. Let's take a look together and see what works for your budget. We have options for everyone. An hour later, the couple left with keys to their first car, a reliable sedan that fit their needs perfectly. As they drove away, Marcus, who had been watching from a distance, approached Emily.
That was well done, he said.
Emily shrugged modestly. Just doing my job. Marcus smiled. No, you're doing more than that. You're setting the standard. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt a genuine sense of pride, not in her sales numbers, but in the difference she was making. The dealership buzzed with activity as the new initiatives began taking root. Customers were greeted with a refreshed energy, and the staff, though still adjusting to the changes, began showing signs of cohesion. Emily took every opportunity to lead by example, joining the sales team on the floor and handling difficult situations with patience and professionalism. One afternoon, Marcus called Emily into his office. Close the door, he said, gesturing to a chair. Emily's pulse quickened. Was there a problem? She sat down, folding her hands in her lap to keep them steady. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her for a moment. I've been watching the way you've handled the transition these past few weeks, he began. I won't lie, I was skeptical at first. But I have to say, you've exceeded my expectations. A flicker of relief crossed Emily's face. Thank you, Mr. Williams. That means a lot. Marcus, he corrected with a small smile. Titles have their place, but we're building a team here. That starts with seeing each other as people, not just roles. Marcus, Emily repeated, her smile hesitant but genuine. I want to share something with you, Marcus said, leaning forward. When I bought this dealership, it wasn't just a business move for me. My father was a mechanic, and he spent decades working in shops where people underestimated him. He always told me that owning something like this, a place where he could call the shots, was his dream. He didn't live to see it happen, but this dealership is my way of honoring him. Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. That's inspiring, she said softly. And humbling. Marcus nodded. That's why I'm so invested in creating a culture here where everyone feels welcome, customers and employees alike. It's not just about profits, it's about purpose. And I want you to help me achieve that. Emily's chest tightened, a mix of pride and pressure. I won't let you down, she promised. I know you won't, Marcus said. Which is why I'm giving you more responsibility. I want you to lead the training initiative across all our regional dealerships. Emily's eyes widened. You want me to oversee all of them? Yes, Marcus said, his tone firm. You've proven you have the skills and the vision. But more than that, you've shown you're willing to learn and grow. That's the kind of leadership we need. Emily hesitated, overwhelmed by the weight of the opportunity. Then she straightened her shoulders, determination hardening her resolve. I'll do it, she said. Taking on the new role was a challenge unlike anything Emily had faced before. It wasn't just about managing her dealership anymore, it was about shaping the culture of an entire network. She traveled to other locations, meeting with managers and staff, many of whom were resistant to the changes. Why fix what isn't broken? One veteran manager asked during a meeting. Emily smiled politely, but stood her ground. Because staying the same doesn't mean we're not broken. It just means we're ignoring the cracks. Some meetings were more contentious than others, but Emily leaned into the discomfort. She shared her own story, admitting her past mistakes and explaining how they had reshaped her perspective. Slowly, she began to see progress. Back at Westfield Auto, Marcus remained a steady presence, offering guidance when needed, but giving Emily the space to lead. He also made a point to build relationships with the staff, often joining them for coffee breaks or casual conversations. You're not what I expected in a boss, one mechanic admitted during a lunch break. Marcus laughed. What were you expecting? The mechanic shrugged. Someone, I don't know, less approachable. More corporate. Well, I'm just a guy trying to make this place better, Marcus said. And I can't do that without all of you. The mechanic nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. Just as things seemed to be stabilizing, the dealership faced an unexpected challenge. A viral video surfaced of a disgruntled customer claiming they had been mistreated during a recent visit. The footage, taken out of context, painted the dealership in a poor light and quickly gained traction online. Emily and Marcus convened an emergency meeting to address the situation. We need to respond immediately, Emily said, pacing the conference room. If we don't control the narrative, this could spiral out of control. Marcus nodded. Agreed. But we're not just going to defend ourselves. We're going to listen. If this customer felt mistreated, we need to understand why. They decided to release a public statement acknowledging the incident and inviting the customer to a private meeting. Marcus himself sat down with the individual, listening to their concerns and offering a heartfelt apology. The transparency and humility of their response turned the tide. The same customer later posted an update, praising the dealership for its commitment to accountability and improvement. That could have gone very differently, Emily said to Marcus afterward. It could have, Marcus agreed. But honesty goes a long way. People respect businesses that own their mistakes. Months passed, and the dealership thrived under Marcus and Emily's leadership. Sales were up, but more importantly, the culture had shifted. Employees felt valued, customers felt welcomed, and the community began to see the dealership as more than just a business. It was a place that cared. One afternoon, as Emily reviewed the quarterly report, Marcus walked into her office. Good news, he said, handing her a folder. Emily opened it and smiled. The numbers were the best they'd ever seen. This isn't just good, she said. It's incredible. It's a team effort, Marcus said. And you've been a big part of that. Emily looked at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. Thank you for believing in me, for giving me the chance to prove myself. Marcus smiled. You earned it. As he left the office, Emily glanced out the window at the bustling showroom floor. For the first time in her career, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, not just for what she had achieved, but for the person she was becoming. The dealership had changed her, just as much as she had helped change it. As the success of Marcus and Emily's leadership grew, so did the opportunities. Word of the dealership's transformation spread throughout the region, attracting attention from the corporate office of the automotive brand they represented. Marcus was soon invited to speak at a national conference for dealership owners, while Emily was asked to lead a panel discussion on inclusive workplace practices. In preparation for the conference, Marcus called Emily into his office. "Pack your bags," he said with a grin. Emily raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "You're coming with me to Chicago," Marcus replied. "The brand execs want to hear directly from you about the changes we've made." Emily blinked, stunned. "You want me to speak at the conference?" "You've earned this," Marcus said. "Besides, this is your chance to show the industry what real leadership looks like." The towering Chicago Convention Center was a far cry from the familiar confines of Westfield Auto. Emily felt a flutter of nerves as she stepped onto the stage, but Marcus's reassuring nod from the audience gave her the confidence she needed. She began by sharing her story, not just the dealership's transformation, but her own personal growth. "When Marcus Williams walked into my dealership," she said, her voice steady, "I made assumptions about who he was and why he was there. Acted on those assumptions, and it nearly cost me my career. But it also taught me one of the most valuable lessons of my life. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about learning, adapting, and leading by example." The room was silent, her words resonating deeply with the audience. "I used to think running a dealership was about sales and efficiency," Emily continued. "But now I understand it's about people. Our employees, our customers, and our community. When you invest in people, the success follows." The crowd erupted in applause, and Marcus stood, clapping with pride. Returning to Westfield Auto after the conference, Emily and Marcus found themselves energized with new ideas. They began implementing strategies they'd learned from other dealership owners, blending them with their own unique approach. One of their biggest initiatives was partnering with local nonprofits to host community events, from car seat safety inspections to charity car washes. The dealership's reputation as a community hub grew, and with it a loyal customer base. But the journey wasn't without challenges. One evening, Marcus called Emily into his office. "We've got a problem," he said, handing her a financial report. Emily skimmed the numbers, her brow furrowing. "Supply chain issues?" "Worse," Marcus said grimly. "We're being undercut by a competitor down the road. They're offering prices we can't match without taking a serious hit." Emily frowned, her mind racing. "If we can't compete on price, we'll need to compete on value. Let's double down on our service offerings, free oil changes with every purchase, extended warranties, things they can't replicate." Marcus nodded. "It's risky, but it might just work." The strategy paid off. Customers who had been tempted by the competitor's lower prices returned to Westfield Auto, citing the superior service and trust they felt with the team. Marcus and Emily knew they couldn't rest on their laurels, though, and continued finding ways to innovate. Meanwhile, Emily took a closer interest in the mentorship of her staff, particularly a young sales associate named Jordan. Jordan was ambitious, but lacked confidence, often second-guessing himself during sales pitches. "Can I give you some advice?" Emily asked him one afternoon. Jordan nodded eagerly. "People don't just buy cars," Emily said. "They buy trust. If you believe in what you're offering, they will too. Confidence isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about being genuine." The advice struck a chord, and within weeks, Jordan's performance improved dramatically. Months later, Marcus received a surprising phone call. The corporate office, impressed by his leadership, offered him a position overseeing multiple dealerships across the state. "It's a big opportunity," Marcus said to Emily as they sat in his office. "But it would mean stepping away from Westfield Auto." Emily felt a pang of uncertainty. Marcus had been the anchor of their transformation, and the thought of him leaving was unsettling. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Marcus smiled. "That depends on you." "Me?" "You've proven you're ready to lead," Marcus said. "If I take this role, I want you to run Westfield Auto as the general manager." Emily's breath caught. "That's a lot of responsibility." "You're ready," Marcus said firmly. "And I'll still be around to support you. But this is your time to shine." After a long pause, Emily nodded. "Okay, let's do it." As the new general manager, Emily embraced her role with confidence and determination. She continued to build on the foundation she and Marcus had laid, fostering a culture of respect, inclusion, and innovation. One day, as she walked the showroom floor, she overheard a customer praising the dealership to a friend. "They don't just sell cars here," the customer said. "They actually care about you." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with pride. Marcus's mentorship had changed her, but more importantly, it had given her the tools to change others. Years later, Westfield Auto was recognized as one of the top dealerships in the region, not just for its sales, but for its impact on the community. Emily often reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from her initial misstep with Marcus to the thriving, inclusive workplace they'd built together. One day, as she reviewed the latest sales report, Marcus stopped by for a visit. "You've done well," he said, looking around the bustling dealership. Emily smiled. "Couldn't have done it without you." Marcus shook his head. "You could have. You just needed the chance to see it in yourself." As they stood there, watching the team they had built together, Emily knew one thing for certain. Mistakes didn't define a person. What mattered was how they responded, how they grew, and how they helped others grow along the way. Years later, Emily stood in the center of Westfield Auto's showroom during an anniversary celebration. The dealership was alive with energy. Balloons bobbed from car antennas, customers mingled over catered snacks, and the staff buzzed with pride. Marcus, now a regional executive overseeing dozens of dealerships, was there as the guest of honor. When it came time for the speeches, Emily stepped up to the microphone. "I still remember the day Marcus Williams first walked into this dealership," she began, a ripple of knowing chuckles spreading through the crowd. "I didn't know then how much he would change my life, or how much I needed to change." Marcus smiled from his seat, a mix of pride and nostalgia in his expression. "What started as a wake-up call became the most transformative journey of my career," Emily continued. "But this dealership's success isn't about me, or even Marcus. It's about all of us, our team, our customers, and the community we've built together." The crowd erupted into applause, and Emily paused to take it all in. Later, as the celebration wound down, Marcus approached her. "You've done something special here," he said. "Something that will last long after both of us have moved on." Emily nodded, a soft smile on her lips. "It wasn't just about cars, was it?" "No," Marcus said. "It never was." As they shook hands, Emily felt a deep sense of closure. Not an ending, but the completion of a cycle. The dealership was thriving, the team was stronger than ever, and she had grown into a leader she could be proud of. Watching the staff interact with customers, Emily knew she wasn't just running a business anymore. She was part of something bigger, a place where people were valued, respected, and inspired to be better. And in that moment, she realized that the legacy she and Marcus had built wasn't just about the dealership. It was about change, about redemption, and about proving that even the deepest mistakes could lead to the brightest transformations. The end. Hope you enjoyed this video. Comment your opinions below. Please support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. See you in the next one.